You see all these beautiful pictures on TV and magazines. This isn't real. Most people don't live that way. And for those who do, they're no fun to hang out with anyways. I had a lady the other day. She said, "How many coffee cups do you have?" She says, "Oh, I think I have over 20." I said, "How many people live in your home?" She's, "Just me." So let me introduce you to the gentle art of Swedish death cleaning. It talks about as we age, here are the things we should start thinking about getting rid of. Kitchen timer, 15 minutes. All right, right where you are, start picking up and putting things away.
Welcome to Declutter, tips that actually work, straight from our wonderful Lifeshiift seminar delivered by pro organizer Kim Diamond of clutter-free. Maureen Atkinson here, founder of Lifeshiift, and I have to tell you, I don't always find decluttering easy, but the way Kim explains it, it all seems doable. And if you like this video, give us a thumbs up, maybe subscribe so you don't miss any of our Lifeshiift videos. Stay tuned because you'll see some amazing before and after pictures towards the end of her presentation. Off we go. Here's Kim with her presentation.
I'm Kim Diamond, easy name, just like it sounds, and my company is clutter-free Inc., so clutter-free Incorporated, and I've been a professional organizer for about 11 years now, and should have been doing it my whole life. I realize in my past, in every job I've had, I've always kind of been doing it. It's just, I guess, the way I'm programmed. But what I've learned in this business is that's what matters, is how we all think. We're all different in the way we think and the way we live in our spaces. So I'm going to be talking a bit about that. I'm going to share my screen and then I'm going to explain my credentials and what they mean and why they matter. In case you ever work with a professional organizer, you can tell the difference between an actual organizer or a tidier upper or a house cleaner, because they're very different. With professional organizers, it's about systems and how your client thinks, not about it making it all pretty. We do that too, but it's all about figuring out the why of any clutter points or frustrations and fixing them. So under my name there, you'll see CPO, CPOCD, and CVOP. So what those mean are my certifications. So I'm one of the more certified organizers in Canada because I chose to be. A lot of people don't want to spend the time and money to do it, but it really does make a difference. So CPO means Certified Professional Organizer. There's only a handful of us in Canada. CPOCD, the most important one I have, is Certified Professional Organizer in Chronic Disorganization, and that's quite a mouthful. And I'll explain what chronic disorganization means later, but that one took 4 years to get, and there's a reason for it. And the other one I did during COVID is Certified Virtual Organizing Professional. I can work with you virtually. And there's a very specific method to be learned to do that, but it's actually a really good one as well. So I can work with anyone. I have clients in the States. I have one in the Arctic. It's a lot of fun. So I'm a member of 3 professional associations. So there is such a thing as professional organizers in Canada. So if you ever wanted to work with an organizer, you can go to that website and find an organizer. And there'll be listings in your geographical area. And you can look and see, like, oh, do they do homes? Do they do downsizing? Do they do estate clearings? Do they do photo organizing? There's so many different types. The American counterpart is the next one. And that's where I got my CPO from. And that's NAPO. And then the one below that, ICD, the Institute for Challenging Disorganization, another mouthful. That's where I got the CPOCD. And that's all 3 of those have websites that you can click on to find an organizing professional in your area. So even the other 2 are American, they have international members. There's people from Canada who are members. You can find someone, or you can call me and say, "Hey, Kim, I need someone for this. Who do you recommend?" And I will find you someone. So, and Hoarders Canada. So if you've ever seen the show Hoarders on A&E, well, they came to Canada a few years ago and I did 2 episodes with them, one in Winnipeg and one in the Arctic. So that was interesting. So I am also a hoarding specialist. Not many of us around either. So typically what a lot of professional organizers do are what I have here up on the screen. This is definitely what I offer. So residential or small business organizing. Also home offices. Those became very popular with COVID. I prep homes for sale and work with the stagers and do all the stuff that stagers don't like to do. Downsizing and moving. I work with clients with chronic disorganization, and that is chronic disorganization. People with that, they're just wired a little differently. It can be neurodiversity like autism, it could be ADHD, it could be chronic depression, it can be concussions, grief, other mental illnesses, physical illnesses like you've got a heart condition, you can't bend down or lift up too high to get things. So there's reasons where that cause organization to be a challenge on a regular basis. I'd say the most common is adult undiagnosed ADHD. I clear estates, I help design spaces, and I work virtually, which has come in very handy. So there's a lot of misconceptions about what professional organizers do because, well, one, a lot of people don't know we exist, but it's really not about like, let's get the baskets and the labels and make it all pretty. And I mean, that's great, makes for excellent TV. But it's not about that at all. Education and training matters. For example, when I'm working with someone with ADHD, it's critical that we reduce their papers because that's often a really big challenge. And things, when they're put away, they're out of sight and out of mind. So clear containers are necessary so they can see what's in there, and label. So there's very specific methods. You want to find an organizer who's insured. If they're not insured, I'd be worried because, like, say a bookcase fell on them, that's going to come out of your insurance. They need to have their own insurance. And being a member of a professional organization means they are bound by a code of ethics, which protects your privacy. I mean, we're going through all of your stuff. You don't want us talking about that to somebody else. Don't do that unless I have permission. I don't share a photo. I don't share anything about a client. And we don't tend to do a lot of heavy lifting or clean your house. We have other people for that. I'm too old anyway. So real life, you see all these beautiful pictures on TV and magazines. This isn't real. Besides, that is not enough shoe storage. Come on. That's what I wore yesterday. I'm kidding, but it's not about having all this beautiful, clean. Most people don't live that way. And for those who do, they're no fun to hang out with anyways. You want to have real people in your life, but it's all about making your home the way you want it and the way you like to live, not some ideal that a magazine tells you this is what you should have. Everyone has their own normal. And that's what I always try to figure out with a client. It's like, what's your normal? Because heck, I've got some piles of things sitting around. I also have stash space available. If someone's coming over, I can stash it in there. We all do it. We're human. So it's a perfectly normal thing to do. So when I'm working with a client, or if they want to start to do things themselves, I always say we start in the storage areas of your home, the closets, the cupboards, the drawers. We want to maximize the space there so it can make room for incoming items, because so often, front hall closet, there's coats there you haven't worn in forever. There's a broken umbrella. There's like a scarf that, itches. You don't never wear it. Like, clear that out, because once storage areas become full, they don't work anymore because it's too hard to find what you're looking for or grab. And that's true of kitchen cupboards with, cans and bags of chips and what's in the back. Then you end up with expired food and it's like, oh, I got to throw that out, and it wastes a lot of money. So you got to pull it all out, see what you have, sort it. Oh, okay, I did my kitchen drawer. I've got 3 vegetable peelers. I didn't know that. Well, which one do I like the most? Okay, well, we'll get rid of the other 2. And whatever you're not using. And I'll talk about why people hang on to things later. There's always a reason, and I'll address those. But get rid of the stuff that you don't use and get rid of the things that don't belong there because they need to go somewhere else. So yeah, purge it, get rid of it. Maybe you want a drawer organizer in there. Use an organizing tool to give it some structure. And then you put it back and it looks all great. When working with an organizer, they're so helpful with this. It's like having a trainer at the gym. You get more done and it gets done faster and better if you've got someone right there with you, a professional guiding you through the process. So some common clutter points that I find in people's homes is definitely the entryway, because we come in, drop your purse, your bags, your mail, all that stuff. And if you don't have a good entryway set up, it becomes a tripping hazard for all of us. And as we age, tripping hazards are really critical to eliminate in order to prevent us from, falling down, breaking a hip, getting a concussion. It can happen to anybody. So entryways are really important. Kitchen gadgets. Okay, I love them. And but I've had to tell my family, stop buying me those for Christmas, birthday, Mother's Day, or whatever. I have what I need. I don't need all these gadgets anymore. And they clog up your drawers and then they jam and you can't get it out. And I'm referring to potato mashers in particular on that one. So, they just jam that drawer. So you want to keep Drawers and cupboards should be about 2/3 to 3/4 full, and closets. If they're more full than that, they're cluttered and they're not going to work. That also works for laundry. And I put that in there because I'm seeing this more often, is where people, their closets are full, their laundry baskets are full, and then their washer dryer is full. So that whole system is clogged and doesn't move. One of those should be close to empty or empty at any point, or in a manageable condition. Because honestly, the more clothes you have, the more laundry you have, and the more folding and putting away you have. And who wants to be doing that all the time? Not me. So most people wear 20% of their wardrobe 80% of the time. Think about that when you're going into your closet. I haven't worn this. How come? And often it's a simple thing. The zipper catches, the tag bugs me. That button doesn't, it pops open at inopportune moments. Or the last day I wore this, I had a really crummy day. And whenever I look at that, that's what I think about. Get all that negativity out of there, and you're going to have less laundry to do, and you're going to be a lot happier. Basements and garages. Those are the places where things go to die and people forget about them because they're not a priority. I'll deal with it later. It's out of my house, kind of. So those areas, as we age, tend to fill up because it's full of stuff. I'll deal with it later. Someone in the family might want it, and you forget about it. And so when I go to help do an estate clearing and I'm finding stuff from 1982, it's been sitting there forever. So organizing tools are really important. And those are things like, I put a battery organizer here, and I always like to include this in all my presentations because the 9-volt batteries, the ones in the middle on the right with the 2 terminals, it's always good to have batteries in a battery organizer because of those. If they are loose and they touch, you can have fire on your hands very, very quickly. So if you have them stored loose, put electrical tape over the terminals. If not, get a battery organizer. Hardware stores carry them. You can, all kinds of places have them. Kitchen Stuff Plus, I think. Very important. But you want to look at what works for your brain. So if you look at the drawer there, some people like to have the drawer organizer with the cutlery tray, right? Do it that way. Other people like, I want inserts put in so I can just chuck them in there like that. Slight difference, but works differently for different brain types. And it depends on the structure of your drawers and kitchens, but it's sometimes very important to use add structure and limits to drawers. So this was a client who had some really lovely belts, and she didn't want them hung up because some of them didn't have a way to hang up. So we said, all right, let's work with this nice drawer. And we put in these nice little drawer inserts. She still has some room to put some others in there, but the deal is if she buys another belt, she's got to take one out because she loves to shop. So we're working at finding ways to limit. And it's the same way with dresser drawers. A lot of us overstuff them, and you'll end up breaking that drawer. Again, 2/3 to 3/4 full. And then you can usually see what you want. And there's ways of doing it, folding, rolling, whatever. I mean, I don't like to spend a lot of time folding. I'm not one of those Marie Kondo people at all. I like to roll. It's easy. But everyone has their own way. Getting creative here. This was a custom job for a client who had a spare room, and their little closets in their old house were so little. I said, you know what? We want to use this room and create a giant walk-in closet. So with my handyman, we got some pipe shelving, and they wanted the gold instead of the black. And we made the whole room into a walk-in closet with some shelves on the wall for shoes and then a center rack for special items. It was so much fun. This is just one wall. You can do all kinds of things with spaces that maybe you don't use, and you can transform them into what you need. Oh, this is a good trick. This is just a simple little job. Client's home office, and she wanted to organize her supplies for her printer and her tech. She had this great little white cart. I said, this is perfect. Put your printer on there. And we used all white containers as best we could. And that creates kind of a uniform look. It looks sort of homogeneous rather than if you had all these different colored things, then it looks cluttery. So a trick is to have the same color. Decant. For any of you who shop at Costco, this one's for you. When you get those big boxes of stuff, they aren't designed to fit into our pantries and kitchens. You got to take them apart and what I call decant them. So this is just a simple example of a client who had a basket with all of her tea, and it was overflowing. She couldn't get at it. I got her a little tea caddy. In fact, I got her a few. And so she had one for caffeinated, one for herbal, and was able to, and then loose teas. We actually made this nice little system for her teas because she was a big tea drinker. And this made her so happy, this one little change of decanting it and getting it into the right container that suited her kitchen cupboards. When you're downsizing, you've got to think about space-friendly items. Laundry baskets like this that fold up and collapse, and then you can tuck them out of the way when you don't need them. Great. You can get colanders like that, salad spinners, mixing bowls, funnels. There's all sorts of things that come in collapsible sizes. And so if you are reducing your space, really think about this option for things if you can. Look up, you've got space going upwards. It's not all about here. Use your vertical space. And this is just a little example of what you can do in a kitchen cupboard with your cans. If those were all standing up, you wouldn't be able to see what was behind necessarily, but with this, because it's angled, you can. And there's other tools you can use for the same effect, but use your vertical space, use all of your kitchen cupboard. When you're downsizing, same thing as with your furniture, it needs to downsize and scale with you. And I'll talk about that in a little bit as well, but you want to think vertically as well, where so often our brains think horizontally. So it's a little bit of a mind shift. Multi-purpose items are great. And this applies mostly to technology and kitchen gadgets. If you have a kitchen gadget that does one thing and you use it twice a year, don't keep it in your main kitchen drawer. That's your prime waterfront real estate there. You want to put that item like in a pantry or somewhere else where it's less convenient because you're only using it a few times a year. Technology changes so much. So if you're able to get a cable that has multi-purpose things, you can have one cable instead of 8. I see so much electronic clutter in people's houses of all ages because it changes so much that it's not fair. They do it to us, right? So think multi-purpose if you can. Keep the items that can do more than one thing for you. Keeping it going, 15 minutes a day. With certain clients, I actually use a timer. I get one of those little cheap little egg timers, your kitchen timer, 15 minutes. All right, right where you are, start picking up and putting things away. 15 minutes a day can maintain an organized space. And you would be shocked at how much you can do in 15 minutes, especially when a timer's going, because it's comes almost a bit of a game like, okay, I've got 15 minutes. What can I do? For some people, if that's overwhelming, we start with 10 or we start with 5. But gradually you can build up more. And then once it's really in place, maybe in time, you can get it down to 10 minutes. So a simple little timer, you can even use one on your phone, all you need to do. Things most people have too much of. Okay, Tupperware people, we need to talk about Tupperware. And takeout containers, I swear it multiplies behind the closed cupboard doors. It spawns and creates new stuff. And that's why you get the lids that don't match anything. But we all have too much, like, especially as we get older. You know, if you're having people over and you want to send them home with food, tell them to bring a container with them. You do not need to supply everybody you know with a container. So have a modest amount for what you need every now and then. Like, think about how often you actually use it. Holiday decor, pare it down. Most of us have stuff we've had for decades and we never put it out every year. So say Christmas is a good example. When you take down your decorations, look at what you didn't use and think, you know what? Let's get rid of this. It's cluttering up my basement or my garage, right? Gift wrap. And what I tell people with that is don't buy event specific gift wrap. Buy something that can work for any holiday. Like a white gift bag could be anything. It could be a wedding. It could be a baby gift. It could be Christmas. It could be someone's birthday. It could be whatever. And just maybe the ribbon or the tissue maybe adds another color. It's Valentine's Day. Okay, red tissue. Keep it generic and then it's more multi-purpose for you. Like I was talking about before. I had one woman, I swear she had 20 huge bins of gift wrap, one for every possible occasion, filled to the brim. And like she had a big basement. But why? Why have 20 bins of gift wrap that she wasn't using? We got it down to 2. It was a lot. Pens, coffee cups. I had a lady the other day. She's like, oh, I said, how many coffee cups do you have? She's, oh, I think I have over 20. I said, how many people live in your home? She's, just me. I went, oh. I said, do you have like coffee parties and people come over? No. Why do you think you have so many? Oh, people give them to me as gifts. I said, yeah. If you get one, get rid of one, right? If it's stained, if it's chipped, out it goes. Nobody needs that many, and it really can clutter up your kitchen. And again, if you're downsizing, you don't want to give up most of your space to coffee mugs when you need to make room for other things. Paper is a nemesis for so many people. Piles, they sit there because, I'll deal with that later. I'll get to it. There's nothing terribly important in there, but try to think of ways to reduce the paper in your life. Obviously online billing rather than getting things mailed to you, trying to get rid of the junk mail that comes it can be very frustrating and difficult to do. But if you do get it in a mailbox, bring it into your house and let it sit in one of those piles of paper. Put it right away into your recycle. So again, with some entryways with my clients, I have a small but attractive little recycling bin right there. Bam, it doesn't even make it past the entryway to clutter up the dining room table or the coffee table or wherever it's going to end up. Just don't even let it in your house. Sentimental items. This is a tough one for so many people, especially when you're downsizing or if you're dealing with, say, an estate of a loved one. If you want to take something to keep as a sentimental item of that person, if you're going to put it in a box in a closet and it's not going to be part of your world, and you're never going to look at it, then why are you hanging on to it? Example I was discussing earlier was I'm working with a client and we're clearing out the kitchen of her mother's home and we find a apple peeler. Oh, my mom used that to make her pies. I've got to keep that. Well, oh, okay. Do you have an apple peeler at home? Yeah. Well, do you want to use this with your mom's instead? No. This one's actually not very good. Mine's better, but this was my mom's. I said, well, do you have the recipe of the apple pie that she made with this peeler? Yeah. I said, keep that, not the peeler. She went, oh, right. So think about a piece of paper as opposed to an actual peeler. It's a good trade-off. So there's other ways to sort of memorialize or keep an item without keeping every single item that the loved one had, or things you used to use and aren't going to be using anymore. A place where I get my framing done had this really nice shadow box in their office of a beautiful teacup and saucer, and it belonged to her grandmother. And I said, oh, that's a great idea. I really love that. She said, I always loved the teacups in my grandmother's china collection, but I didn't want the whole set. So I just kept that and I hang it and I think of my grandmother when I look at that. I thought that's a fabulous idea. Instead of feeling guilty keeping a whole set of china that you're going to put a box in the closet and never use. Useful items, but I might use it one day. If I had $1 for every time I heard that, right? What I tell people with that is saying, yeah, you might need it one day, but what's the worst thing? You have a drill, electric drill. You haven't done anything with a drill in 15 years, but that was my husband's drill. It was my dad's drill. Yeah, but are you using a drill? No, but I might need that one day. I said, all right, but do you have a neighbor with a drill? Yeah, maybe you could borrow that one instead. In Toronto, we actually have something called the Toronto Tool Library, where you can actually, like books, sign out tools. Like there's other ways to get a tool. So don't keep things for decades that you might use one day. Keeping up valuable space, especially if you downsize, because space is more precious and expensive items. I spent a lot of money on that. I have to tell people sad news all the time. I'm sorry you spent $20,000 on your cherry wood dining room set in 1982, but nobody wants it right now. Nobody wants china hutches or curio cabinets or these big, it's just not in style and everyone's unloading it right now, the baby boomers. So the value's plummeted. It doesn't honestly owe you a cent. You've enjoyed it since 1982, had all these fun dinner parties and holidays. Doesn't owe you a cent. Donate it and let a refugee family begin their memories with it or do something positive. If it's saleable, honestly, I try to find a way to sell it or donate for a tax receipt, but this stuff's very hard to do. So let's get into downsizing because this is all the cool kids are doing it. And it's smart to have your downsizing plan done when you're healthy and able, not when you are forced to do it. Because I've had to work with clients in both scenarios. And when it's a forced situation where the senior has fallen, like I said, maybe broken a hip, is in the hospital, and their whole home needs to be rearranged in order to accommodate their new way of life there. Sometimes that's not possible and they have to downsize, but then they can't be part of that process. And I'll tell you, that is stressful. I would never want that for myself. So make a plan early and think about where am I going to want to live in 5, 10, 15 years? Kind of environment, what kind of stuff is important to me here that I want to take with me? Like I said earlier, if you're going to be moving to a smaller space, you have to scale what you have as well. And that means quantity of possessions, including clothing, coats for all those closets, because they're going to be smaller, and your furniture. Great example is it's really lovely to have a nice horizontal dresser in your bedroom because you can put more things and pictures on the top. But what you might need to do in a downsizing situation is change that to a taller dresser. So it's more narrow and uses your vertical space. Remember, look up, and then it won't interfere with a window or a heating vent or that kind of thing. You might actually need to think about that. Maybe your couch won't fit, but your love seat will. So things like that. Big puffy armchairs. Sometimes that's not going to work. You need something a little more streamlined. Tables that condense, tables that fold down. Again, so everything has to usually scale. And again, the challenges are OBF. And so a client made up this term, old brown furniture. So that dining room set I was talking about, people don't want it. They don't want the curio cabinets to put all of the Royal Doulton figurines because they don't want the figurines either. They don't want the big china hutch with the set of china because they don't want the set of china or the silverware or the crystal to go in it. If it doesn't go in the dishwasher, not going to happen. Now, there are exceptions to these rules. And it's highly individual as to what the item is, where you're living, and what consignment stores or auction, what's selling at the time, or even that week. It can change like that. I had a client with a huge Lionel train set from 40 years ago. And an auctioneer I work with, he's like, yeah, I just sold a whole bunch of these and they actually did really well. So we got his stuff into the next auction. They didn't do that well. Like it could go like this. And silver plate is almost worthless. Sterling silver, obviously, it's worth the silver. China, sets of china, maybe like a full, beautiful set of Limoges or Colport. Again, very few sets are in demand. Crystal and clothing, unless it's high-end designer like Chanel or whatever, consignment stores typically aren't interested. It's sad, but it's the reality. Our world has too much stuff. So let me introduce you to The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. Great title of a book, makes a good gift. But it's actually a really lovely book. It's written by a Swedish woman. And it talks about as we age, here are the things we should start thinking about getting rid of because we really aren't using them. And the goal is so that we don't leave our families with this huge mess to clean up after we're gone. If you've got a loved one who's hanging on to stuff because, oh, so-and-so in the family might want it, buy them this book. It will help all of you. You can, it's in pretty much every bookstore. It's pretty popular and they've made a TV show out of it as well. This is an evaluation tool I use with some clients. So it's a scale of 1 to 9, 1 being perfectly in order, no clutter, and 9 being what you see on hoarders. This is a clutter image rating scale, and this is for a bedroom. And this scale exists for all kinds of different rooms like kitchens, living rooms, bathrooms, that sort of thing. So I thought the bedroom is a good one. When it gets to around number 3 or 4 is when clutter starts to be a factor, especially if you're a senior, because then there's tripping hazards. When you're getting into 5, 6, you're starting to get into clutter that is now causing true safety hazards. And 7, 8, and 9, that's hoarding. And again, there's hoarding disorder, which is a mental illness that actually starts in childhood, but gets magnified with the stresses of life. That's the short version. There's also hoarding behaviors, which are more temporary, and those clients can usually be helped. And I'll address that with some of my before and after pictures later, and I'll show you. Some things can mimic hoarding, but they're not. It's estimated about 2 to 6% of our population has hoarding disorder. And just you think about the size of Toronto, that's a lot of people. So again, such simple ones. Residential organizing. This was a simple, quick little closet job for a client. Like this is her linen closet and she didn't have storage in her bathroom. So here it was. And it was frustrating for her. So I reused some of the containers she had, but I also brought in a bunch of clear ones for all the little toiletries and makeup. And she loved products. So got those all sorted. She had linens for a bed she didn't even have anymore. So we were able to get rid of those and just make it just a happier little place to find her things, medications, whatnot. And literally, I don't know, I think that took an hour and a half the most. I showed you that rack with the cans before. So on the left was my client's attempt at being organized. She tried to almost create other shelves with those little wire things. Great and all, but it wasn't working. So on the right, you'll see I have some clear containers, and the middle shelf, I have risers there. So you can see the different levels of cans, and she knew exactly what she had. Because on the other side, she had a lot of expired food because she just couldn't see it. So decanting things, putting them like items together with clear homes, and her kitchen was great. Redoing a home office. So this was right after COVID. This woman, she was both a real estate agent and a music teacher. So she needed her office to work for both things. So I got her on the right, 2 little magnetic boards for each job she had, a filing cabinet for each job she had. On the right there, that white IKEA filing cabinet. I had to put that together. I will never do that again. I think there were 1,000 pieces. Hire somebody for that because I almost lost my mind. But she wanted coastal. So she had the room painted. And then I found her a nice chair and a carpet from HomeSense. And we just gave it this nice coastal vibe with like a sea glass lamp. Loved it. A calm, happy, productive space, right? Instead of going in there going, oh, look at all the clutter in here. I gotta declutter before I can even work. Teachers and lawyers and accountants have the most paper, I think, out of anybody. And once I had a couple, one was a teacher, one was a lawyer, and there was a lot of paper. So I actually helped that teacher organize her classroom at the end of the year. And we found all kinds of stuff she didn't need anymore because they hang on to everything. Because honestly, they buy a lot of stuff with their own money. It's really crazy. So we did a classroom. That was kind of fun. Preparing your home for sale. What's really important is trying to get the big, large, dark items out. So this woman had a big dresser on the left. That was just a mattress that was under the bed that I pulled out because you could see it under the bed. You pull that out and let the light in, and it looks like a completely different space. Most people, when they're buying a new home, they're looking at it on a smartphone or a computer screen. So if there's a lot of dark stuff in there, it's just grabs that light and it just looks dark and dank, really. So you want light and bright and airy and spacious. So that's something I do with clients is I help them pre-pack, get rid of what they don't need, pack up and inventory what they do need, and either goes to storage or in a basement, depending on what the real estate agent wants. And then the stagers can come in and make it all pretty. Then when they're ready to move, they already have half their stuff pre-packed. It's actually quite a seamless process. Chronic disorganization. This affects a lot of people, and it's not a bad thing. It's just that your brain is wired a little differently. And so your setup in your home needs to be a little different. This woman had ADHD. And as you can see on the left, that most people would say, oh, that's hoarding. It's not, it's ADHD. She had a hard time sorting and categorizing things. She was getting too specific. I need a pile for white socks and red socks. I said, no, right now we're getting all your socks together because you get bogged down in the detail. So we simplified things and put drawer organizers in there, reduced all the stuff on surfaces, and everything had a home. And that made her absolutely thrilled because she could never have done that on her own. She needed help to make the decisions until she was practiced at it and then was able to do it. And we set it up in a way that made sense to her. Also, her filing system. When it came down to making labels for her files, I said, what do you want to call this one? This is your CRA stuff. And she said, oh, I don't want to call it CRA. I have another word for them. And it wasn't a nice one, but that's what we called it. And she said, yep, that's what made sense to her. I'm like, great. This is bipolar disorder. So this was a mom who, when she was on a high of her manic depression, she went shopping and would just spend all kinds of money on books, toys, stuffies, everything for her daughter. When she was on a low, she shut down and couldn't organize it. So that's what caused, like, actually the entire house looked like that room. So we started with her daughter's room because Children's Aid got involved, and I had to make the bedroom safe for the daughter. So bipolar disorder, when untreated, can also mimic hoarding. Addiction, whether it's alcohol, drugs, whatever. This guy was a severe alcoholic, and he was sleeping on that mattress along with some other furry friends that lived there. That's rats. He had rats' nests in there, and we had to gut and clear out that whole place. Obviously, I had a professional extreme clean company assist me with that, but then working with the family, we set that up on the right and gave him his dignity back. And that was 7 years ago, and he's doing great. He was in such a pit he couldn't get out. Senior with mental health issues. I put this in for a reason. Is some senior, this was a 90-year-old woman who was living on her own. That's her kitchen. And if you look in the bottom, you see sort of an open page thing and a little Bix jar. And then if you look over in the right side, you'll see a couple of Bix jars in the bins there. The bathroom was on the second floor and it broke a long time ago, let's say. So what did she do? Look at all the containers there. Yeah, she did. So she stayed in her home long after that home was working for her. She didn't have any help, never married, no kids, no siblings. She had friends on the street, but nobody knew what was going on in there. I did not open that fridge. It had been unplugged for 3 years. Not going to happen. I didn't think I'd deal with that. But I had to gather up all of these containers and put them in these specialized biohazard things and get them taken to Stericycle for disposal. But they were all over the house because there was no functional bathroom there. So keep an eye out for seniors in your area. Bring them cookies and just say, hey, let's have a cup of tea. And if they're in trouble, like there's people who can help, because I see this far too often. And if we think it's not going to happen to us, it can happen to the smartest of people. This woman was so smart, so intelligent, but when it came to her own health, she couldn't do it. And then hoarding disorder. This is actually a shot from a kitchen looking to a dining room up in Kugluktuk, Nunavut, where I shot an episode for Hoarders Canada. You can't even see or get into the dining room. You can't even see the table. The whole house was like that. People with hoarding disorder or like other mental health issues that can cause clutter like this are very good at keeping people away. I'll come to you. No, let's meet at your house. Oh no, you know what? I've got something going on with my water in my house. So, there's a million excuses. They're very good at keeping people out. So keep an eye out for those people in your circles, your neighborhoods, because they might really need some help, because this is obviously a life-threatening condition. And then a subset of that is something called Diogenes syndrome. And this is a lady, they hoard garbage, literally garbage. And that place, I can't even tell you what it smelled like. It was worse than the one with the fridge. Often there's sexual abuse in their past, and this is a wall to keep people out. So this poor lady, she had her and a cat, which pretty much lived in her closet up until the age of 9. I was able to help her, and then she got into a retirement home. I took her cat because there was nowhere else for it to go, and that cat's still going at the age of 16 and living its best life. So this is just a subset, but the other part of Diogenes syndrome is self-neglect. So if you see a senior in your field, in your acquaintances, family, friends, and they're starting to, not taking care of their hair, teeth, or dressing, whatever, this could be that. Just for awareness. And that's why I include this, is because most people have no idea what this is. But I see this more often than not. Now, every time I say I've seen it all, I regret saying it because it's not true. I see something even crazier. But I have seen some freaky stuff, and not much scares me. I mean, I do everything from hoarding like you see on the show to gorgeous homes on the bridle path. I've got a pretty big range of clientele, so you can't scare me. But hopefully I can be a resource for any of you. If you need help wherever you are, I am connected internationally to all kinds of people, and would be happy to help. So thank you.
So many great ideas. I have to tell you, the idea of organizing according to how your brain works, that struck me. Also, the idea of the 15-minute a day, which really does make it feel like you can actually do this. So how about you? What are your biggest decluttering challenges? Or do you have some great solutions? Put them in the chat below, and we'd love to hear from you.